On in through the night. Ocean.com. For all of you smartphone users out there, you can download the Midnight Ocean app either on your iPhone or on your Android device and get past shows and also live shows as they happen. Recommend that. That's actually a great feature. I wish there was a way. I have to get with my developers to see if there's a way that we can embed the video on there, because we're going to be doing some really cool things starting the first of the year, where we're going to have a full studio cam setup in which we'll have multiple cams, multiple angles, all of that stuff. I adjust myself as we go along into the evening. I hope you guys are. I'm kind of torn with this conversation because it is entertaining, but I don't want to be entertained with this. This is sad. This is sad in so many ways. And the fact that we're seeing our republic fall apart at our very eyes. We're seeing murder and mayhem, and we're seeing good, honest Americans who are there to fight for us losing their lives. So I'm torn, and I hope you are too. We shouldn't view this as entertainment, not at all. As we go back to our very special guest, Bob Fletcher. Bob, all right, we're back. Yeah, I love this is incredible stuff. I've never heard this before, and I know most of my listeners have never heard this either, what you're telling us now. I mean, we hear rumblings and everything, but this is all news to me. And it's, I'm entertained, but I feel guilty for being entertained because, Congressman Bono, he was looking out for us and he paid the price.
Here's the big deal with Sonny was that, he could not be bought.
Yeah.
He couldn't be bought. He didn't need the money. He didn't, he wasn't, and he was really a staunch American. I mean, like I said, he became, because things that I've known only because of being plopped in the middle of these things, these investigations so many times, so many types, and so many people, although they're a small group really. See, that's really spooky too. The same names that I dealt with and was concerned with, and the people that were training them and working with them, under them, trainees, if you will, and what have you, as the other guys grew older and kind of slowly faded away, the people that they were supporting and holding hands and training them to carry on, I've carried it on, and it's a hand-me-down, and like in the Bush family, which is the most corrupted bunch of slugs I could ever imagine, and you go back in his family, you find out that I think it was the grandfather of Bush.
Well, Prescott Bush was Hitler's. He was Hitler's banker. Was
the banker, the United States banker for Hitler and the Nazi program.
Yeah. Yeah.
He literally was shut down, surprisingly enough, by Herbert Hoover, who was pretty criminal. Yeah. But he shut down the bank that the Bush family was co-owners of, and got upset with Hoover. Said, "What are you doing? You can't cut. You see who I am. You can't do this to us." And he said, "You're Nazi. You're Adolf Hitler's banker. I do, and I am shutting you down." See, a lot of people don't know that.
Yeah.
See, you go back, and they still are Nazis. I mean, it's skull and bones,
yes.
And all that stuff. And the sad point is, after doing this for 30 years and starting out as an average American, naive, believing everything, I was in the U.S. Coast Guard during the war. I enlisted and all of that stuff, and and did it for totally gun-ho, God bless America reasons. America is as corrupted as the Soviet Union. Period. End of story. End of story.
I agree. I went on a rant. I went on a rant last night saying the only thing America produces these days is war. I mean,
absolutely.
That's the only thing that we truly have a lock on the rest of the world over is war. We produce war very well, and that unfortunately. And that's the reason why I used to do a political podcast and very successful. And I had to get out of it because we were always doing this, but I wanted to get you on the show because I want people to wake up. You have firsthand knowledge. You have the credentials. You have the bona fides, as they would say. Anybody can Google you, look you up, and know that everything that you're saying is truth. The problem is no one's saying it. No one's getting it out there. And that's why I thought it was so important to bring you onto the show, because we need to start dealing with, there's so much misinformation out there that makes people who want to get the truth out sound and look like nut jobs, right? But your story and your experience, because I also know, and we're going to talk about it off the air, but I also know because I had some experiences. You talk about Nashville and your buddy with Vista. I had some experiences when I was first starting up in the computer business in Nashville, Tennessee. I shared a not an office suite, but we were in the same office with a gentleman. And I know for a fact that him and your partner at Vista ran together, and that guy scared me. He would pull me in. He had a one-room office. It was just him. And I kid you not, I would sit there and listen to him. Great business guy. And here I am, a young buck getting into the software business. And he was somewhat of a mentor towards me until I'm sitting there overhearing him talking about shipping, F-15 and F-16 parts, all on wings. He was looking for wings for airplane parts.
He might even been directly connected with Gary Best.
Oh, I know he is. And we're going to talk offline about that.
That's fine, because Gary Best was he owned in Marysville, Tennessee.
Yep. And
his home, he bought the golf club there and lived in the golf club. The mansion. In the mansion.
Yeah, no, I'm going to give you his name after we get off the air.
Yeah, that's fine.
Because he was he was a mentor, but he's scared. I mean, I'm sitting in there talking about, hey, I got this deal. This company wants to buy this product, because at that time I was writing encryption software. So I was dealing with encryption stuff and algorithms. I'm like, what should I do? Should I save it? Can I sell it to this company because they're overseas? And this gentleman was like, he goes, I can sell it for you if you want to. And I'm like, how do you do it? He's like, don't ask. And so we would go back and forth for, I mean, the guy was a savvy businessman. But like I said, what I thought was odd is he's in this building at Cummins Station. I'll tell you the building. It's Cummins Station in downtown Nashville. It was my first office building. And this guy had, it was a lot of music people. So these offices were real plush and everything, real visually appealing. His office, you walk in, it was a door, and the door didn't have glass. You open the door up. Well, first you get buzzed in. You walk into the door and his office was sitting right there. And that's all it was. It was just him. Yeah. But yet he had like 5-6 phones. And
that's all they need, right?
Exactly. He had phones, and I'll tell you, after 9/11, because at that time I was in Chicago, I moved to Chicago. When 9/11 happened, the first person, because I knew this guy was on the inside, I called him immediately, and I'm like, "Hey, should I be concerned?" And he was like, "Get out of Chicago if you're in downtown Chicago." And I was like, why? And he's like, because there's there's an airplane reported coming towards Sears Tower. Now, naturally, that never happened. However, I didn't know this until I did the research. A lot of Americans don't know this. They actually arrested I think there was 11 other planes that they took people off of.
I'll tell you what. I've been working for almost 2 years on the DVD that I will be able to put out here pretty soon. That covers that completely and explains how it was done, who did it, and internal insight into that nobody's ever put together.
Wow.
First off, the real sad part is that it was not done, that Osama bin Laden had nothing to do with it whatsoever. The plans for the in-depth national security retaliatory plans by the Joint Chiefs of Staff was on George Bush's desk about 3 weeks before the hit.
Yeah.
Before the hit.
I see. I like I said.
And by the way, all of the assumptions that have been put out relative to multiple explosives and all the rest of that, it's got nothing to do with it. It wasn't.
Yeah.
And that's all I'm going to say. But the rest of it we'll talk later. After we'll talk. I'll be back on your program.
Oh, absolutely. Later. Yeah, for another. Yeah, I want to give a whole topic that. But I did find it strange. You talk about 9/11, is that you did have a president in the White House during 9/11. It was Bush Sr. He was there. Him and Dick Cheney were actually there together. So you had a former director of the CIA sitting in the White House. And a former president. You have a
listen. The complex. I'll tell you what. Let me just make. Let me ask you.
Sure.
How do I say this without being? I don't want to be impolite.
No. Say it.
Everything that you think that you knew about it is probably wrong. And even if you had, potentially in-depth information coming from somebody or anything like that, reserve all of that conversation until you can get this, because it's and see the numbers of things that were set up on this beforehand, before the 9/11, by high-level military and executive-level people. It's it's overwhelming. And when you see it all, you go, oh my God, and let me just say one thing that nobody's talked about at all. I mean, because nobody knew, so to speak. The jets that were scrambled, the emergency jets that were scrambled, leaped into action, except they were only about a damn 40 minutes late, so to speak. Yeah. And all that. None of them had armed weapons on board. None of them were armed.
See, I don't doubt that at all.
Yeah, but wait a minute. Whoa. I mean, do you think anybody that's out there listening would ever even imagine that? No. That the highest level jets that theoretically are to protect the White House are not armed?
Yeah,
I mean, whoa, hey. And by the way, the person that I have on my tape, just 2 minutes is all it is, of a huge tape, matter of fact, huge DVD, is a pilot of the jet.
So
they were obligated, if they caught one, to kamikaze hit them.
Wow.
In the air. End of story. How screwed up is that? Think about it. You want to lose sleep about that one.
Yeah, no, that's
that's mind-boggling.
That's a whole nother.
Holy mackerel!
We'll do another show.
Oh, yes, but be just it.
I do want to circle back. And I know that let's talk about the relationship and what the relationship, because we touched on it here, between President Bush 1 and President Clinton in Arkansas, because let's talk about President Clinton and what he was doing, because I think it's so important. And then also let's talk about the fact and what you know of and what you've uncovered, if you've uncovered anything. I keep on telling friends and family this. 186 associates in one way or the other have died around the Clintons since their reign of terror. I want to call it reign of terror.
Probably.
And you talk about, you had the Commerce Secretary, I'm including the passengers of the airplane that he was on as well in that list.
Absolutely.
So that's why the number's so high. But I think really, I last count, it was something like 60 something associates of the Clintons. I just, like you said, I think that they had strong ties to the CIA with what you've uncovered doing the Iran-Contra. I think they just learned how to do wet work, or they learned how to go get people that can do wet work for them.
Have you ever heard of Larry Nichols?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And, Larry is, that was his job for Bill Clinton as governor, to eliminate people. One of his jobs.
What?
He was running this fraudulent Arkansas government assistance, for expansion of businesses or something like that. That was a part of his job. And he talks about it right now. He's an older guy like I am now. He and I used to speak on the road. We did presentations together, along with everybody else. As a matter of fact, I've met all of the been involved co-host with several of the guys, and a good few of them are gone now. All right, so here.
Well, wait a minute. I want to clarify something. I didn't know. I thought you were talking about Terry Nichols, the gentleman that was in part of the Oklahoma bombing.
No, Larry.
Yeah, I don't know anything about Larry Nichols.
Look him up on your computer.
I'm looking at him right now.
Look up. Let's see. It's
Larry Nichols.
If you go on computer, you go Larry Nichols.
He says
Bill Clinton.
I'm looking right. It says I was a hitman for Bill and Hillary. Now, how in the heck can a guy come out and basically confess that he's murdered people for someone? And especially the president of the United States. And number one, his butt's not sitting in some jail somewhere.
No. Okay, but stop and think about it. All right. if he says that, okay. And then your question is, how come that? What happens if they arrest him?
Well, no,
they have to go. Wait a minute, listen up now. Excuse me, I didn't being impolite. Didn't mean to do that.
No, they have to run a case.
Listen up. Here's what happens. He's going to go to trial, right?
Yeah, and the truth will come out.
Uh-oh. Now you answered your question.
Well, why didn't someone civilly come after him?
Huh?
Why
No, same thing, same case. Oh. In other words, and that's the problem. I had one case with a guy where Senator Kerry, who's now the Secretary of State, I had fed his people an awful lot of information back in the old days, so to speak, and I got a call from a lady who was, she said, I'm prosecuting. She was a lawyer. She says, there's a guy, I'm trying to think of his name, and Terry Reid. And she says, in Missouri or someplace, I don't know where the heck she was, I don't remember. And she said, Senator Kerry told me to call you. I'm a lawyer representing a guy named Terry Reid who had had an aircraft used by Oliver North.
Mm-hmm.
And he's being charged by the government here locally.
Yep.
He's being charged with insurance fraud because after he filed because it was stolen from his hangar, it was returned in about 60 days to his hangar, and they're going after him for insurance fraud. And she says, Senator John Kerry told me to call you and that you would get it straight and would help me out, because he's telling me that all these big shots, including Bill Clinton and all, were involved with, and Oliver North, that these people were all involved with criminal acts, and I don't believe it. That's crazy. Okay. And I said, okay, well, I'm in, I think I was in Atlanta at that time. I said, Orlando. That's where it was. And I said, fly on into Orlando and I will supply you with paperwork and I will tell you how to terminate the problem you have, because Terry Reid is telling you the truth. I knew Terry and had already spoken to him. He had called me for help. I had so many people call me, assuming I could help. In some cases I could, and in Terry's case I could. So she flew into Orlando and I said, all right, so explain to me real quick what's going on. She says, well, like I said, he had that plane and and she said that it was lent out, but then or he was going to lend it out to Oliver North and some people out of the White House to do flights for drugs. And she says, I can't imagine that. And I said, oh, wow, okay. And she said, but then the plane showed up again, and he had already collected full payment on a stolen plane because he had, put it in as stolen.
Yeah.
And so, okay. And I said, all right, here's what you do. I said, you go, and I gave her paperwork, and which included, by the way, I was the first person in the United States that got their hands on Oliver North's handwritten notebook, personal notebook out of his top pocket, and the inside emails where he actually said, we got to meet with so-and-so and supply a plane to pick up 1,500 kilos of mash. All right? Handwritten notes. All right? And this is the stuff that really lit the fire, because I took it up and handed it to the chief legal counsel for the House Foreign Affairs Committee and said, here, gasp on these, because everything they had seen was blacked out. And I had everything before they were blacked out, not redacted. And I'm talking about like 100 pages of computer stuff, by these guys talking about what they were doing. You talk about mind-blowing stuff. Okay, so I gave this lady stuff. I said, here you go. You see this? This is Oliver North's handwritten stuff. Here's this. I said, here's all you do. When you go back, you explain to them Mr. Terry Reid's story about obligating to lend them, the government agents, airplanes to do whatever they were going to do. And then they brought it back, and they stiffed him on this thing and makes him look like a criminal. He's not a criminal.
Yeah.
And that's what I said. Now, And these 3 names, and I just pointed to the names, and I said, you subpoena for his case depositions from Oliver North, and then I went on down a couple other, I don't remember which ones there were, but I named a couple others besides Ollie. And I said, you do subpoenas in the courtroom for that and see what happens. And she said, okay. She took it back, prepared a case, handed it over to the judge, and he says, we're going to pass on this. Let Mr. Reed out of jail. Done deal. See, and it goes back to what you were saying with Larry Nichols, and that is that they can't do that. You can't bring these people in when they've got covert top secret stamp stuff they're doing, and it overflows into the public citizen area like they did, Gary Best did with me. See, I never could go anyplace. I couldn't go to court because it was, like this, they classified my toy factory as a national security threat.
You're a little fuzzy, which I'm telling you, I probably have one of them.
See? See what I'm saying? End of story. You can't take these guys in for depositions because it'll open a can of worms. It'll spill all over the desk. So they can't do that. So end of story. The lady called me back in about a week. She says, oh, thank God. Thank you very much. She says, they just threw everything out and said, forget it. We're not even going to talk about it. I said, son of a gun. How about that?
Wow.
Anyhow. And that was funny because that was Senator Kerry had turned her to me,
and of course, Kerry has all this information indirectly.
Well, and of course the other. See, he knew all of my stuff, you see, but that was the point. And he knew that I would just show it to her and that would be the end of it. And at the cost of one airplane trip and a hotel room for a day for herself, and then flew back home. And that was that. And that's all it cost. But it saved his butt, because it basically just looked like he had committed insurance fraud.
Well, absolutely. But if I was working, I don't know. Well, if I had an airplane and I knew it was going to be used in a criminal activity and I was part of the gang, right? I wasn't the criminal. I would naturally try to disassociate myself from the tail number as quick as possible.
Well, whatever. There's just a lot of stuff, little things that went on behind that and everything. But sometimes these guys, again, they use blackmail like crazy in Washington for everything. Yeah, the reason that nothing ever happens with these congressional and Senate inquiries, that all of those people are criminals, for crying out loud. Yeah. All of them have something bad that if they don't help to shut down Project A, if they don't help to bypass any prosecution on something, they're going to get prosecuted for something. So they even have regular guys. I had one guy told me that, as a matter of fact, legal counsel for the House Foreign Affairs during the Contra thing told me, he said, if Lee Hamilton from Indiana gets brought in on a committee, it's a whitewash. He's going to cover it and shut it down. And that's happened every single time, and the guy told me right out in front. And he says that's what's going to happen. I brought information in that would have impeached 2 presidents one time, and it was the October surprise information, 1980, the Ronald Reagan, Bill Casey, Vice President George Bush running against Jimmy Carter, and how they stole the election in 1980. And I took in the information. It would have gotten a whole bunch of them impeached or arrested because this was not until 9 years later. And the guy that I took it to, he said, again, it was extremely high level at the inquiry. And he says, I'm going to take this. He says, and I'll put it in. I'm going to present this, And he says, I'm looking at it. I see what it is. He said, I don't know what they're going to do with it, but that the people that are involved with this inquiry, nothing's going to happen. And I said, I understand probably, but do what you got to do. So when they finished the investigation, which was in 1989, a congressional inquiry on the 1980 election, the 75 pages I supplied them were included in the report as classified blank pages. You know. So, I mean, it's just, you know, again, like I have to repeat it. Our government, the whole thing is as corrupt as the USSR, period. End of story. There's nothing other than to say that we are as bad as the Russian Soviet Union.
And you can't do anything about it because they,
nobody can.
They stamp it national security, or they put a bullet.
End of story. End of story. National security.
Yeah, I do want to talk about, and then we'll wrap it because this kind of goes along. Gary Best, Oklahoma City bombing. How does Gary tie into that, and why?
How does he tie into that? 1992, Gary Best went to Russia. He went to Azerbaijan under a contract with the Soviet Union. Well, there's broken up Soviet Union with Russia. Who was it? Yeltsin, I think, if I remember correctly. He went to Azerbaijan to train mercenaries between Azerbaijan and Armenia. They were having a war. All right. He supplied weapons and training to both sides. He was functioning also, I must say, as a double agent, both for Russia and the United States of America. Now, whether they both knew or either knew or neither knew, I don't know. But that's what he was doing. And he was there in 1992, 93, 94. He stole $13 million of oil equipment. He stole an entire oil company from a guy named Ponder in Texas. Ponder Oil Company. This old fella that had his business for a long, long time, drilling and all, drilling equipment, all that, dismantled it and shipped it into Azerbaijan, the Russians, where he was assisting the Russians to regenerate their ancient oil fields. Or this was part of it anyhow. So he was being paid multi-millions in oil. He was being paid $10 million a month to train mercenaries in Azerbaijan. He was supplying them both with weapons and including equipment, which included, I think it was the Armenians got like 15,000 bulletproof vests without the inserts, which is a bulletproof vest. It's like wearing a suit coat.
Yeah, without the ceramic.
Right, without the ceramic internals means that it does not stop bullets.
Yeah.
So they didn't understand how come all their guys were dying with their bulletproof vests in Armenia. Anyhow, that's the kind of stuff this guy does. He's stolen money from everybody. He stiffed his lawyer in Atlanta that drew up our contracts for $35,000. He stiffed a little guy that had a chain of stores like the 7-Eleven stores out of Atlanta called Munford. He stiffed him out of $80,000. I was watching him do that. I was sitting there watching him. He's telling me how he was taking this guy for $80,000. And here's the thing. Nobody can touch him. See, because as long as they link it from a legal point of view, as long as they link it to some covert, legitimate, or whether any covert operation is ever really legitimate, I don't know. But as long as they can link it to a government operation considered to be secret or top secret, these guys can't be touched with a 50-foot pole. You got little guys that work for the CIA for 20, 30 years that have $47 million in the bank. You know, their payment, their salary used to be 65, 80, 70,000. And all of a sudden they got 150 acres and race horses, you know, and stuff like, you know. And what are we talking about?
But how did that?
So now let me get to the Oklahoma thing.
Yeah,
I was just telling you the time frame he was over there. So he's periodically in 94 or coming into 95, 94, that period of time, that was when the Oklahoma thing took place. He in the middle of doing this unbelievable stuff with supplying war, both sides of the war, and all this kind of stuff, and meeting with the Russian premier and all the rest of that, he hopped on an airplane and he flies into Oklahoma City 60 days before the bombing. and he buys a hamburger factory, a place called Harris Meat. He bought a meat processing company.
Harris Meat got in trouble for the tainted meat.
Well, okay, I don't know about
tainted meat. Yeah, just recently. Yep.
Recently. That's beside the point.
Yeah, just recently.
That was probably dirty money that got made it infected. Anyhow, so Gary goes. He buys the Harris Meat Factory. He doesn't know his whatever from Harris from meat.
Yeah.
You know, nothing. What's he know from? He knows about burgers and when he eats one. All right. So then he disappears. You know, jumps back on a plane, goes back to Azerbaijan for a few weeks or whatever. Flies back again. So he flies in and out a couple times. The neat thing is that he took the governor of Oklahoma for $75,000. He screws everybody. See, took them for $75,000 on a loan, a corporate loan to assist in rebuilding the meat factory or whatever, and it's on one of these Oklahoma state financial assistance programs, you know, for bringing in businesses and stuff. Now, how much the governor of Oklahoma knew, Governor Keating, how much he knew about what was going on, I don't know. But anyhow, Gary Best had supplied C4 explosives and timers to the Nicaraguan Contras while I was there. Okay? All right. So, and by the way, he was using the watches I told you about. Those were the timing devices that he was selling, blah, blah, blah. If he had them, you might as well use them, right? Okay, so here's what happens. The meat factory is 1 mile from the Murrah building.
Okay.
A couple of weeks later, boom, there it goes. You got all that crap, got all this Oklahoma bombing thing and everything and all that stuff. The day... 1 year, and these guys do these funny things with dates and numbers and ceremonial crap. They have this funny stuff about it. 1 year, on April 19th, the following year, which is the day of the Oklahoma bombing, Gary Best files bankruptcy on the Harris Meat Company. It's because he never did anything with it. I mean, he had no intention of doing anything. It was like my toy factory. See?
Yeah, it was a shit.
He never had anything to do with it.
Yep.
It was a reason to be there. You got to have a reason. Why did he fly in, interrupt this Russian covert military training, for crying out loud, and all the rest of that stuff, and supplying of weapons to the tune of $10 million a month? Why would he run away from that 3 or 4 times and just buy a meat factory for nothing? Because it was a reason to be there. Now, it's also a good possibility that the one strange foreigner that they were trying to locate, people had seen, and they had sketch of him out and all that stuff, and they were looking for him for a year or so. Yeah. That was probably one of his employees brought over from Azerbaijan. Yeah,
guy number 3. I think there was a... Right. Wasn't there...
You remember that? Yeah.
Oh, there's an Oklahoma.
They described him as looking like he was maybe Hispanic, or they said he's probably Azerbaijan.
Yeah.
All right. So anyhow, no, I don't know about that, but Gary Best was involved directly with it in one manner or another, and that's the reason. And so now here's what happens: I see a newspaper. Somebody sends me a newspaper from Oklahoma about a year after the event or whenever it was, and said that there's a lot of strange questions about Harris Meat Company, and that they were filing in bankruptcy, and they were having problems because everybody. See, what they did, what the governor's relationship, not only did he assist in giving him $75,000, which, by the way, he didn't need, but if you offer it to him, he'll take it. $75,000 signed off by the governor was part of the bankruptcy. The state's not going to get their $75,000 back. Okay. And by the way, that's like lunch money for this guy. But anyhow, but everybody, because the governor got involved with it, with this wonderful guy named Gary Best that came in and built or bought this decaying meat company, okay, and was going to bring in 300 employees and all that stuff. See, that was so wonderful that everybody in Oklahoma that had an extra buck invested and bought stocks in the company. Okay, and of course all of that, and for equipment and stuff. Of course, all that money's going down. The first people to go down, or the first thing goes down the drain are these, poor little investors. So they're going to lose all their money. The state of Oklahoma is losing $75,000 that they lent to me, and what the claim of the property, the legal claim in court, which was written up in the story, was that there was a company in Azerbaijan, an oil company, that actually was the lien holder on the equipment bought by Gary Best. Well, nobody knows. Who would ever imagine that this guy, by the way, Gary Best looks like a Baptist preacher. You wouldn't think anything scurrilous about this guy. If you met him, you'd never even believe him. You would just think he was the Reverend somebody. Anyhow, here's what happens. He's going to the bankruptcy court, and he's about to win the bankruptcy court, but nobody knows that he owns a company. The company's called Mega Oil in Azerbaijan. Yep. That lent the money. All right? Nobody knows that's Gary Best. So when I get this newspaper copy that somebody just recognized the name and said, "Hey, Bob, is this the jerk that you dealt with?" And I realized it was, because I already knew that he was, there in Oklahoma before the bombing and left afterwards. Anyhow, so I picked up the phone, and because in the paper it says the name of the judge and the lawyer that's handling the bankruptcy. Mm-hmm. And I called him and I said, "I'm going to send you some information," etc. I said, "But I'm just going to tell you on the telephone, and that Mega Oil is in fact Gary Best out of Azerbaijan, and I can prove it because he's been written up. They've been trying to run him out of the country, for crying out loud, for 7 months, and can't do it." Anyhow, so I sent the information over, and the judge just went over it real quick, and just said, "This guy's committing fraud." See?
Yeah, because he didn't put it on.
you can't make like the $5 million in equipment. All the money that's derived from the sale of the equipment and the property, $5 million or something like that, was going to go to this lender who had first dibs because it was the financial support,
in which he owned.
And lo and behold, he owns it. See, now you can't do that crap. Okay, and nobody knew that. I thought that lawyer. I think I heard him fall off his chair while I was talking to him.
Yeah, I'm going to declare bankruptcy, but I owe me, so I'm going to get all my assets.
Yeah, I owe me all this money, and even the state of Oklahoma is going to get screwed to the tune of $75,000. So anyhow, end of story. That was that. They threw him out of court with that, and he just went back and I guess shot some Russians or something.
But I don't understand how that ties. I mean, the fact that he's there is suspicious.
Because the only thing he does, it's like saying. It's like having a serial killer move into a little town, and all of a sudden there's 10 dead people on the same weekend.
Yeah, but he didn't kill. I mean, someone else killed. I guess my question is that obviously, I mean, it's kind of like the building. Well, it's building 7. If I knew it was going to happen.
No. Here's the point. There were several people that said they saw people go in there ahead of time in the basement with stuff that looked like C4 plastic and wires. I mean, they have that. Those were witnesses. They didn't know who they saw, what they saw, or where they saw it. You follow me?
Yeah.
But it was in the basement of the Oklahoma building, the Murrah building.
Yeah.
And the thing, and it was C4. I was totally involved with that, with General Parton, the military guy that did the bomb analysis and all that. I was totally in with that. I have a one DVD that's about the Oklahoma bombing that doesn't even include Gary because that came later on. But he just fit right into the puzzle. It's like, where would they get who it was? Who was it that went downstairs underneath and with wires, for a day or two and a whole bunch of stuff that looked like putty?
Yep.
All right, and wired it, and who would have the skill and the knowledge, who could do it, who could put the timers in, who could supply the C4, and you say, gee, it would have to be somebody who was in that business.
Yeah.
And you say, well, do we know anything about anybody like that? And you say, well, we got Gary Best, and that's what he did for the Nicaraguan Contras, and he was doing it, and he does it, and he's doing it today, training people in Azerbaijan.
Yeah.
Well, he taught yesterday. He was in Azerbaijan training guys on how to blow up buildings with C4 and kill people. Now he's over here.
But why did the government? I mean, I understand the towers, 9/11. Why did the government? Were they hoping that it would start a war? No.
Why
did they blow up the Merrill building?
They were hoping it would do what they finally did with the towers.
Okay.
All right. And what was that?
Oh yeah,
Homeland Security.
Gotcha.
End of story. They hadn't been able to pass anything. That's a total dictatorial thing. They can arrest you, not even tell your family where you are, when you are, and you're out of here because they stamped the thing on your forehead that said terrorist.
Yep. No, I know.
You're out of here.
Yeah.
That was the whole thing. It's the world government, one world government, new world order, quote unquote, George Bush.
Okay.
All right. It's a new world, one world government.
Because that was
which requires Homeland Security, the omnibus bill that permits tapping your telephones, listening to everybody, and doing all of that stuff. It is legal today in the United States to do anything they want.
Yeah, they can yank you, and they make it perfectly clear to you that they can yank you out in the middle of the night, and you can go away, and there is no habeas corpus.
End of story.
Yeah, you don't have a right to a trial. I mean, look at what's going on with the guy. You don't have a right to bail. I mean, look at the guys. I mean, I agree or disagree with the Oregon standoff. I mean, there's guys in jail that have no right to bail. They have nothing. And
that's all garbage too. They're just good old boy patriots that didn't like the way things were being handled, and they got thrown in jail for bitching about it. Or they throw away the key, and our government, like Pete Santilli, whoever, like him or hate him, or what, you got to look at it as merits. The guy was there, regardless if he, they prosecuted him with, or they're prosecuting. Well, they threw the one charge out in Oklahoma, but they're holding the 16 other charges down in Nevada, with the standoff down there, saying that he incited and he said that, people should come down here and defend the rant. It's all bunk. It's all bunk. I said, the guy, hate the guy. All of those guys, at the end of the day, they didn't do anything wrong. They did what every American should have done. Yeah. Everybody, and now you have to realize also in the 92, 93, 94, 95.
Yeah.
Leading up to the 95, 94 period of time, when like we said, the Waco thing took place, and that was like in 92, and then 94, 95 was when the Murrah building was blown up, and all of that. That was when the Patriot militia groups were forming like crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Now, which I was directly involved with. As a matter of fact, to the extent of the biggest thorn in the side of corrupted government was a group called the Militia of Montana.
Mm-hmm.
And that was me.
Yeah. Okay.
And that was me and three other guys. I ran into these guys that were just patriots that had been terribly screwed by the government in the two or three different things. See, it's like with Aaron Russo, that became a patriot, right? And he was a multimillionaire producer of great motion pictures.
Great movies, and he came out with the IRS film, and boom, he's gone.
Well, here's what happened. No, that's a little bit, the timing's out. It's kind of reversed that. What happened was that they passed an IRS update change on write-offs and things for motion pictures, things of that sort. Completely changed the structure for the IRS relative to performing arts, particularly motion pictures, and retroactively charged him millions of dollars.
Yeah.
You can't pass a law today that wasn't in 2 years ago and then go back and say, you filed your taxes 2 years ago, it doesn't fit today's new law, so you owe us another $5 million?
Yeah.
He went crazy. He was just a guy. He was a good producer. It's a motion picture. He was a nightclub owner. He was a rock and roll record producer and then did movies.
Yeah.
I knew Aaron really well. As a matter of fact, when I had my shoulder blown up, he offered me his home in Tahiti for me to go and just live there with his staff, et cetera, to be taken care of until I got back on my feet.
Yeah.
And that's how close I was to Aaron.
Oh, wow.
And matter of fact, a little sidebar to tell you how well off he was. One of his caretakers at the home that we're talking about in Tahiti stole $500,000 out of the safe that he had in gold coins. Mm-hmm. And when he told me about it, I said, holy mackerel, $500,000. And he said, well, we're trying to chase the guy. We think he's in Germany or someplace. He said, but yeah, whatever, so what? It's no big deal. All right. And literally that's how he took the loss of $500,000. So, anyhow, he's pretty well off, but he was really screwed by Uncle Sam. And what happened to him was he met me by accident in Los Angeles. Well, not by accident. I was brought over to his home. And, that was just when he was starting to get angry, and then when he met me, he went crazy. And then he did the IRS thing.
Well, do you think he well, I know he died of cancer.
He just died of cancer. He was sick.
Oh, was he sick?
He died of cancer. And I tried to talk him out of it, wasting him his time, and his wife or his girlfriend came to me, as a matter of fact, and said, Bob, talk him out of running for the governorship of Nevada, and she says he's just going to waste a whole bunch of money and effort and stuff, and I said, well, I talked to him, and I tried to talk him out of it, as I just told him, and said, hey, you got to remember Nevada was set up by the gambling mob, for crying out loud, and it's still run by the mob. I said, how many close friends do you have that you would consider to be mobsters? I said, you don't even,
for every slot machine, there's a laundry machine for the cash that they launder through Vegas.
But the point is, they own it. They're going to own it forever, and that's also where Sonny had his problem.
Yeah, and for a lot of people that don't know Aaron, who we're talking about, he was the producer for Trading Places, Wise Guys, and The Rose. And then, of course, he wrote and directed